about kind of what Larry and Hugh and folks wanted to hear from us this morning. They talked about the San Diego model and paint a picture of how this program got started. So I'm going to talk for a little bit about IRC from kind of a national perspective, and then Anchi's going to really dig down into the more meat of the program. So the IRC is a really large organization, and we work all over the world in refugee camps and whatnot. And then we operate a resettlement program in 22 U.S. offices. So these are our U.S. offices, and the really exciting thing about this is that some of our offices are in places where you are doing work, and so we're also, as we kind of grow our program, really interested in creating partnerships in those areas. So Atlanta, when I heard that y'all were here, I was excited because we haven't even scratched the surface in Atlanta. So really excited. And then I know that Evan's here from Seattle, and the folks from Seattle Tilt, they're here. And so there's like some real opportunity to create synergy I'm really excited about. Go ahead and of these, a few of them have budding New Roots programs. So certainly not all. And the unique thing is that all of our programs look different in different places because of, or look slightly different because of the local partners and because of the local context. And just like y'all, we did a survey of who we're serving, and the diversity of the clients that we're all reaching out to, and it's immense, and it's very exciting. So one of the things that we like to talk about when we're serving refugees, and this makes sense in how we partner, is a direct service model versus a case management model. So in the places where there are not existing programs, IRC is very interested in building that internal capacity, right, to do so and fill that gap. In places where there are existing programs, we would love to establish those relationships and help provide cultural and linguistic competence to those organizations. So I think you guys probably face this as well, right? You have an organization that's great at doing farmer training, or maybe they run really great community gardens, but they have no idea how to work with refugees, right? So this is how we're trying to think through, how do we add value? What's our role in bringing refugees into gardens and farming across the country? Internally, we've built some, I guess we call them ingredients of our refugee-centered local food system. And so we look at our New Roots program as much more than just a farm training program or a community garden program. It's a food security and nutrition education program. And all of those things really feed into community development and integration of different populations into their communities. So I just wanted to talk real quick about what these elements are, so that it gives you an idea of not only what IRC is doing, but maybe how you might be able to partner with the VOLAG more deeply. And I know there are other VOLAGs that are in the room, so this is what we're doing. So our goal with food security is to ensure that all IRC clients have access to culturally appropriate, healthy food at all times. And the way that we try to do that is making sure that where we put them is close to a grocery store when we're sending them in their first apartment, and when at all possible, that there are culturally appropriate options there. We're the first ones to stock their fridge. So what are we putting in that refrigerator? Can it be food that's grown in our gardens? Does it model healthy choices? And the same thing when we're teaching folks how to shop at the grocery store. How are we teaching them to use their food stamps effectively? Are we shopping what we call, the outer ring, or, what are we modeling for them? And then also, it's our responsibility to get folks into the SNAP and WIC program, but it's also our responsibility to understand that SNAP means Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program. It does not mean that it should be an entire refugee's food budget, and that actually $3 per person per day is not adequate for a healthy, culturally appropriate lifestyle. Yeah?
Sorry, will this PowerPoint be available?
Yes.
Okay.
Sure. Absolutely. And then, so that we know that because it's a supplemental program, we need to have emergency food options. But when you go to the food pantry, pork and beans ain't going to cut it, right? Especially for our Muslim clients. So we really need to be advocates and active in making sure that our clients have access to emergency food that they can and will want to eat. Okay. So agricultural employment, this is something that we're really just starting to delve into. The Phoenix program and the Boise program have had some real success in placing refugees into ag employment as their first job. A VOLAG is responsible for helping someone find their first job, and as we know, many folks come from agrarian backgrounds, so can we get them into a first job that they will like? But also that farm work is not somewhere where we want to leave folks. You know, we want to help them move from, much like the ALVA model, from farm worker to farm owner. And so New Roots can have, you know, sort of this broad impact, or you know, our programs can have this broad impact. But then we need to screen employers and make sure that we're putting them in a good place with an appropriate wage, that they know about their rights, and that they know that we are there to be advocates for them, and that, again, that we're linking farm workers to our farm training programs for career enhancement. So our goal with production, and we kind of, this is something we've played with a lot, and I think is some tension in RAP, right? There are folks that want to garden and they want to grow food for themselves, and that's great. And then there are folks that, you know, want to take it to the next step of commercial production. And we are committed to making sure that no one feels pushed into that commercial kind of vein, but also that they know that that opportunity is available to them. So we talk about production separate from enterprise, and that's the distinction there. So these are our community gardens and our more intensive urban agriculture programs like the fish farm that we'll visit. And then also we have youth programs at both Crawford High School and Hoover High School, which are nearby. And that's a really food justice focused program that gets our students involved in our farms, in our gardens, and in our farmers market. So the goal of the Enterprise program is to provide refugees with the skills they need to operate thriving farm businesses. Many of the goals that you all in this room have. So we operate a farm training program to orient clients to a new agricultural system. This is happening in San Diego and Phoenix, and then we partner with folks like in Boise to provide that technical assistance when IRC is just, you know, offering a garden program, and they step up into something like, hopefully at some point, up into the Global Gardens program. So we're able to build, the reason that is happening in San Diego and Phoenix is because we have micro enterprise programs that can provide lending, that have individual development accounts to help our clients save and make investment. And so we had this infrastructure on which we could layer our farming program that's been really critical. So that's nice to have that internal capacity, but I know there's also those kind of partners in probably most of our cities that are doing that kind of work of making small loans and helping people start businesses. And that we can work with them and teach them about agriculture and how those loans might look different. And then finally, we'll talk, I'm sure, a lot in this about sales and marketing. And Grace in Salt Lake City and the Salt Lake program is, you know, really invested in this with running a farm stand. And I'm sure you guys think about this all the time. You know, it's one thing to grow the food, and then you've got to figure out what you're gonna, how you're gonna sell it. And so those are two very important components of our program. So I just wanted to talk real quickly about, you know, how I said that we have sort of our programs look a little bit different in each office. So I wanted to talk real quickly about the San Diego and the Phoenix model because they're our biggest programs. So the San Diego model is really looking at a neighborhood food system, right? And our kind of approach from the beginning was, all right, we need to both increase access to locally grown food, and we need to ensure the affordability of that food once there's access so that people can buy it. And then if we can do that, if we can pull that off, then we'll have a healthier community, right? So here are some of the programs that have been implemented in order to deal with that. So as far as increasing access, we have the New Roots Community Farm. It's a 2-acre site about 3/4 of a mile away from here. We have 86 families growing on 30 by 20 plots. And many of them are able to have scaled that up into small, what we call income patching, or for commercial sale. We have the City Heights Fish Farm, which you can see out the window, and you'll have the opportunity to go see later. We're growing tilapia, nursery plants, and there's a lot of different demonstrations of different ways to maximize, this, I don't know, probably 1/8 of an acre, maybe less, site. Like I said, the youth program in San Diego is at its core an employment program. So employing we've employed more than 40 youth. And I think this year they composted something like 6,000 pounds of compost this summer. So they're just this very active, very vibrant group. And then we have the REAP program, which is an incubator farm that's in Palma Valley. How far is it, Claude? 40 miles?
Yeah, 45.
It's kind of a trek, but it's a beautiful farm in the Palma Valley. So then talking about affordability, the San Diego office partnered with the San Diego Farm Bureau to launch the first food stamp accessible farmers market in San Diego. And it happens right out here outside this building every Saturday, so that'll be a part of the tour. At that farmers market, we have the New Roots Market booth, so any of the folks that grow in our program can sell at that booth. And I know Ralph and Claude will probably talk about more of that in their breakout sessions. And then we run the Fresh Fund Incentive Program, which I'm sure you all have this in many of your cities. But it is a match when folks use their food stamps at the farmers market or their WIC checks. Or we've actually in California included folks that are on SSI when they use cash, because folks on disability are not eligible for food stamps in California. So when they use their cash, we match their purchases also at the farmers market. And so that's where you get, we can start to get to a place where our folks can set a price that is that's a good price for them, but also is affordable for folks in the community because of this incentive and this doubling, right? Go ahead. And so this leads, to a healthier community, and we're really seeing that happen. Folks have mentioned the California Endowment. They have a 10-year initiative here where they're investing in City Heights, and IRC has been a recipient of that. And there's so much going on and so many different players at the table working to build a neighborhood food system, and that's been pretty powerful. And I think that what we were doing with refugees and agriculture was one of the reasons that they chose City Heights as a neighborhood to invest in. Anchi and her team, and in fact 3 of the folks that will be joining us later are currently down presenting at the Planning Commission of the city, because we're really active in policy change, and I'll let Anchi talk more about that. And also, I think Anchi will talk about the creation of a community-driven food justice movement that's bigger than any program, because it's driven by the residents that are here and the people that are really owning this program. And I hope we can talk a little bit more about that. I think Anchi will. So the Phoenix model. The Phoenix model was built on a very strong micro-enterprise program. So their model was, if we provide farm training and technical assistance and the startup supports that refugees need, that we can get independent farm businesses happening on a pretty quick trajectory. We'll talk about that. So the Phoenix office does a really awesome outreach and enrollment and kind of pre-screening process that hopefully you can learn from Ruku or Timothy or John if you have questions about that. They do a 10-part training module that they've delivered to more than 150 participants since the program began in when? 2007, 4 years ago, with the support of RAP. And then they do a pretty extensive business plan development with the folks that have made it through the classroom-based program and have land and are ready to get started. And the office helps. I know that the land access will probably be a topic that comes up for many of us. Some places are fortunate in that there is lots of land, and other places are not so fortunate in that it is very challenging to find. So IRC provides, as I said, business startup capital up to $15,000. These microloans have been really critical component of the Phoenix program. And then I also talked about the independent development accounts to encourage and help people save, right, for the equipment or things, the purchases that they might need. So the outcome from this, the independent businesses, there's 38 independent businesses launched, or independent farmers on 1 to 20 acres. They're all doing collaborative sales via IRC's farmers market stand at various farmers markets. And hopefully Jessica can talk a little bit about the development of a new co-op, the Gila Farm Cooperative. It's 20 Somali Bantu, is it?
No, it's 23 refugees. There's
23 refugees.
Somali Bantus, but there's 5 or 6 different groups of refugees.
So an independent cooperative business that's off the ground and running, and it's really exciting. So a lot of this, I just really quickly wanted to touch on, it's built on programs that you all have probably accessed or will access in the future. And I think we'll also talk a lot in this the next couple days about the transition from RAP into these more mainstream USDA programs and opportunities there. Community food projects, utilizing AmeriCorps Vista, the Farmers Market Promotion Program, and Beginning Farmers and Ranchers. There are others, but these are the ones that we've used so far. And so I guess this is kind of more of an internal thing, but it just kind of shows that we've got, we're doing this work and we're moving forward, and we're kind of at times taking big leaps and other times steps back, because as you all know, this is really challenging work. And I think, is that it? Oh yeah, these are kind of some exciting, something I just wanted to talk about real quickly. We also just ventured into our first sort of commercial sale partnership with a granola bar company called Ernest Eats. They purchased a small amount of mint, and they're making a refugee harvest granola bar that's going to launch in the spring. And then they want to keep purchasing mint from our growers and kind of tell the story of refugee farming through these bars that are, going to be in Whole Foods and potentially Starbucks and all these other places. So, so I think this is a big learning curve for us as far as how do we maintain production levels at a commercial level? How do we ensure that we're delivering the product? And we're fortunate to have a partner that understands that it's a learning curve for us. But again, something I'm really interested to learn more about from the experts in the room on funding.
Welcome to the IRC San Diego program. Ellie gave a great kind of overview, and that's certainly definitely the larger structure. And I'll hope to add more to that by digging deeper into what is it like on the ground here in the San Diego office. As we all know, we're all working with refugees. So coming to the U.S., it's amazing, the land of opportunity and the land of American lifestyle. 1 in 8 Americans is food insecure today. I think it costs much less than an apple. We've got soaring healthcare costs that are driving families into bankruptcy. We've got a landscape where the car is king and pedestrians are hit. And most, I think, difficult to address is the fact that the economy is at its all-time low in this century. And it's hard enough for a middle-class, educated American, much less a refugee that has survived amazing challenges and then is coming to a place where, at best, our office here is doing 20% in terms of jobs and employment placement. So this is not an easy landscape, and that is what we're working with. Here in City Heights, we're in an urban landscape, so all our programs are different. You've got some images. You've seen City Heights, right? It's San Diego. It's a driving-oriented place. It's kind of suburban, so everything is introverted. It's TVs, it's homes, it's backyards. There's not a sense of parks and plazas and community. You've got a landscape that's not very healthy or inspiring for a lot of Americans, much less new arrivals. And we've got a food landscape that, especially for someone who's not familiar with the ingredients list of a McDonald's package, is just a pathway to more chronic disease. So this is the larger context that IRC San Diego's program has always infused its activities, thinking about this larger structure. And so, so when we started with our program, it was not farming, it was not enterprise, it was merely to provide a healthy resettlement, because for a refugee to thrive, which is IRC's motto, from farm to home and survive to thrive, you need to be healthy. You need to be healthy to hold a job. You need to be healthy to keep your healthcare costs low. So it's part of that overall ability to just be resettled. And so that big picture thinking in terms of these big problems is really, I think, what's infused our San Diego program with that holistic approach, so that our program on the ground really incorporates all these different elements of work. Literally, the food access is part of food security. The definition, right, is to be able to provide your meal today and tomorrow. So today, meaning having that food access, the nutrition and wellness so that it's healthy food, and then for tomorrow, being able to now have enterprise activities to form livelihood, and to make those farming enterprises even viable, we need to have the policy structures, the community leadership, the representation to make farming work. It's hard enough for the average American farmer to make farming work, but in an urban setting for low-income folks, it's even more challenging. And so the advocacy and policy change, again, is this whole big picture approach to the big problem. Has multiple levels of programming. Certainly over the years now, what might have started as just a garden has now grown into 5, 6 different types of programs. And that maybe the story to remember is now that we've been kind of doing this work for many years, the stories are changing and the programs are evolving, and that's just probably the only constant we've got in this line of work. So that within every site, there's really kind of a spectrum of work that's being done both at the individual level and at the community level. So at New Roots or at the Aqua Farm or at the Farmers Market, IRC is working to provide individual support and resources so that the clients ultimately are getting one-on-one TA, the tailored services and programs to help them become self-sufficient, self-reliant, independent. But that we're also through those sites and through all the people involved, neighbors, multiple clients, partnerships with other community organizations, we're basically also creating community resources, community structures, and leveraging the community to help the refugee clients survive or thrive even better. So just as we go through the different projects, to think about how it's very holistic and it's constantly a balance between individual and community resources and services. And so, starting with food security, we operate a healthy food pantry, and a lot of our projects start out as pilots that we hope to institutionalize so that we can work ourselves out of a job and that we see it being, adopted by the community. So IRC had seen that with the food banks and being kind of the emergency food supplies were not always, the most culturally appropriate and sometimes not even healthy. And so with our food pantry, we started to create this model where it would be being very selective, going to Feeding America or certain food banks locally that had healthy foods, being able to source those dry goods like canned vegetables, grains and legumes, and staying away from any of the overly processed snacks and foods. And then supplementing it also with gleaning. And there's 6 different gleaning organizations here in San Diego, and we've created partnerships where now these gleaning groups are coming in and dropping off boxes full of oranges or mostly fruits every week, so that we're able to provide a much more healthy amount of food for clients in need. We operate this both for the community and at all times for our refugee clients, so that they've got access to that healthy food and that base level of food security. And what we're hoping to do is actually slowly phase out of that food pantry work, because we've seen now in the 23 other food pantries that operate in City Heights, they're following in that model as well. So now they're sourcing healthier foods from the local food banks, and what we'd like to do in the next year is to strengthen those partnerships with local farms, to bring in more of that gleaning foods into the other food pantries. And then in that sense, we're then doing much more for our clients by being able to have healthier food pantries throughout all of the community. New Roots Community Farm, I hope everyone's going to be able to see that on Saturday, but it's, like I said, 2.3 acres. 3 years ago when it started, it definitely, it was rooted in food security, being able to allow our clients to grow and eat healthy foods, with their own hands. It has nutrition, it has cultural heritage as part of it, and a lot of education went into it. And I think that that's certainly all of it, what it still is. And then just with time and as we develop our programming and our clients all, we're all learning and growing, we're also seeing this place evolve. And the many stories, we just had this evaluation with our USDA Community Food Projects grant evaluator a few weeks ago, and he, Joseph McIntyre from Ag Innovations, if you know him, came down and met with multiple ethnic groups of participants in the farm, and the first thing he kind of reported back was that all the groups talked about how working in the garden was therapy. And that was the word that they all used themselves. And we don't have any clinical aspect to our programming. We have a lot of kind of farming and food folks on our team. And it just goes to show how, we're getting a whole lot of additional benefits that we're not even, necessarily trying to do. And so I think that's definitely, what RAP has been, extolling, is that farming has all these other great benefits. And that's what we were hearing straight from our clients. And so Newit's Community Garden has really evolved into Newit's Community Farm. And so that's kind of the main story from the time, the past 3 years, is that people are growing and selling, and I'll save that story for next, after this next story, about community leadership and advocacy. So everybody can see all the Newit's leaders with someone who's not a Newit's grower. He's Jerry Sanders, our mayor here in San Diego, and this is after 2 years of hard-fought struggle to make the permitting process a lot easier. So when we talk about farming, when we talk about growing leadership, the connection has to do with literally being able to do the work. It's going to require policy work and advocacy. And that didn't start out easy. Here now we can proudly say we've got great leaders and advocates. And I think when I showed this presentation last time, Bilali was careful to point out, you have to show the struggle, you have to show the conflict that, was the result or was the kind of catalyst for the leadership in the first place. So here are images of the clients down at City Hall, not unlike right now where Bilali and 2 other staff and other clients are at Planning Commission talking about urban ag. But this was several years ago when the community garden process was still something that had taken the IRC about 9 months to go through all these different, kind of very convoluted steps. There's no articulated process. The city had basically told this nonprofit that you've got to pay about $20,000 of fees directly, plus all this additional technical work to get a permit for a community garden to start. So all in all, it took IRC, nearly a year and almost $50,000 to do the community garden. And so when we talk about policy and advocacy, that's why we have to do it, just to do the work of growing food. So there was basically, this galvanized a whole kind of movement here in San Diego, so that, I think over the 2 years that IRC struggled to get this, it really showed all these other community groups and residents how difficult the process was, and as a result, this Coalition 1 in 10 really took on community garden permitting as its cause and really rallied the whole city. So IRC was part of that coalition, and this last spring, we had gone through a series of meetings, and there was one meeting where we had over 200 residents at the CPC meeting, and by June, the mayor had signed into effect basically a new policy that makes community gardens by right, no permit necessary, no cost associated, and you can even sell if the community garden is in a commercial zone on site. So, the whole dynamic just basically rotated 180 degrees from the IRC and advocates kind of banging down the door of City Hall to now having shown as evidence through new routes that it's an amazing thing that the city should be paying us to have this garden, and that's in effect what they've done by making the law much easier is that it should be something very easy to do. And then what's really amazing is that I think through this process, you know, City Heights and the work that refugee growers are doing here has shown the city that this is actually a pioneering, innovative, like cutting edge thing to do, not something you just kind of hush let happen under the radar. And so then the city asked us this summer to partner with them on a grant to make urban agriculture regulation reform a lot easier. So that's animal livestock fees, chickens, goats, and more easy direct sales opportunities in the city. And so, so that was really, I think, also a testament of how things change, is that now we truly are the leaders, the residents in IRC within the realm of policy, and that's why KK, Ellee, and Priya are down at Planning Commission, is because we're just a few months away, hopefully, from the City Council allowing now chickens, goats, bees, and farm stands to happen very easily throughout the city. So, so that's also a testament to what can happen once you've created those partnerships with decision makers, is that you can co-author the right policy framework to make urban agriculture work. Ellie talked a little bit about the City Heights Farmers Market, so I won't describe too much, but I'll reiterate that it was the county's first EBT accessible farmers market, and so from food access, you know, that was very important. And the creation of the Fresh Fund here. Can you raise your hand if you are familiar with the double value voucher program? Okay, so most people know. And so the story I'm going to spend here then is evolution and sustainability. You know, IRC's been working with the City Heights Farmers Market for 3 years now. The Fresh Fund was pioneering. It then got the attention of the county, and then with this huge stimulus grant of $16 million to the county, a huge infusion of funding for the Fresh Fund program happened, and IRC was helpful in kind of replicating the program in 4 other farmers markets in the county this past year. There was tremendous resources for City Heights Fresh Fund because of this grant, and we kind of came to I guess, the problem of success when you're too successful is that we basically, looking at our numbers, spent $175,000 a year on the City Heights Farmers Market Fresh Fund program. So the idea of being able to sustain that and be able to knock on doors of funders to say, could you, you know, keep supporting this program? It was just too much. And so the program.
So that's how much got distributed in the form of incentives.
Yes. So the breakdown then is 175 includes, you know, like kind of IRC staffing and finance admin, but that's, you know, let's just call that like $20K for the market. So let's say $150,000 in pure incentives. So that is a match, like Ellie said, 20 for 20. So 150 also means the equivalent of $150,000 in EBT dollars or cash or WIC that other the residents paid for themselves. But that's what 150 was what IRC needed to raise through grant planning to make that match.
Your $60 million, like, say where that's from.
The 16 from CDC, yeah. And so that was a huge health stimulus grant that went throughout the country, and the county got the biggest one, actually, right? So the program, so our staff kind of our team spent the last, like, all of November kind of deep in deep analysis mode to figure out, okay, the funding is ending in February. What are we going to do? Like, we've got, you know, 8,000 Fresh Fund participants in our database. Everyone's coming every market. And so now what we've evolved is Fresh Fund 2.0. I'll save that for the next slide.
So, the 8,000 people, are you entering data about who's?
Yeah, if you see in that picture, there's Chris, our volunteer, was working from the laptop, so everything's on an online database called Nourishing Neighborhoods, where, you know, there's scanning cards, barcode scanner, turning in. Yeah, we've had to develop a whole.
And to clarify, so we know every single purchase that anyone's ever made and how much investment they've made in the market by individual, by ethnicity, by zip code.
That's a software program you use?
Yeah.
Did you develop it?
we developed it, and then a version was created for Wholesome Wave, and I think some folks, the cultivating communities here, there were some other folks that utilized it, maybe even in your town, but then Wholesome Wave, I think, decided not to go that route. But I know that there's a potential to revive it if it was something that other people were interested in.
Yeah, it's a lot of data. Like that's half of staff work that's coming back into the office. What's also interesting is we enter in all the load lists, so we've got all the financials of what all the farmers sell at the markets and how much their revenue breakdown is in terms of EBT, WIG, cash, and so we're really able to kind of in some ways that monitor the economics of the market. So just to tell the story of evolution, and with the community programs, that's been a huge part of the market as well, and what makes it really special is that it's a place that kids are really welcome. It's a cultural park for City Heights, and so IRC's been a big part in helping to establish that programming, and now we're looking to really see the community organizations rise to kind of sustain that as we evolve into other focuses at the market. So this was NewIt. This is NewIt. This was the first day that IRC received the certificate that allows new growers to sell at the farmers market. Pretty much exactly a year ago, last December, and by a few months later, the booth had expanded into 2, and then just a few months after that in summer, it's now been 3 tents wide, and it's just grown over the past year, and I think collectively we're at $15,000 some dollars by all the growers. So that's really kind of then shown us, the power of the market, and now in different ways. What started as Fresh Fund and food access is now turning into somewhat of a job incubator with farming enterprise. And talking about the community piece of it, everybody works together at the booth, and here you see at 8 a.m. setting up of the market is all the different ethnicities. Everyone's sharing the same booth essentially, and everyone's there working together to set up. So here we are at this kind of transition point where now then with Fresh Fund and with food and farming businesses, I think our program's now kind of taking a moment to evolve. With Fresh Fund, we realize we can't sustain it at $150,000 in incentives every year for just one market. So what we're going to do is really make that now a farmers market incentive program and a little less of a food security subsidy. So the idea being that once people enter in as Fresh Fund, they'll stay for 6 months, and then after 6 months, there's a cutoff point. And then in those 6 months, though, they'll first make a 1-to-1 match, and then at 3-month mark, make it a 2-to-1 match. So they have to put $2 down and get 1 back. And that we're also having it so that they have to come 2 times a month to get their $20 match or $5 match instead of just 1 time, so that it builds customer loyalty and that habit of coming back to the market. And after 6 months, we'll see if people want to stay, they stay because they're loyal to the market, and if not, they go. But this allows us to stretch our dollars wider and to kind of cast the net wider. Because right now we've got about maybe 2,000-3,000 that are City Heights residents. Population here is about 60,000-70,000 people. So I think now we've had to figure out, okay, if we want the dollars to go farther, it's going to have to help the market. And we're also seeing our farmers are at the market. So it's not just helping our farmers get food access, it's helping them survive as farmers. And what really is helpful for farmers at the market is a strong and growing customer base. So it's somewhat evolving the program to become more of an economic development strategy for the market. And from IRC's participation at the market, we're also, like I said, seeing more of a role as a job incubator, helping our clients get in there as farming and food vendors. And so that's a really exciting kind of new program angle. So when the New York Times, called a few months ago and wanted to do a story and kind of listed all the different things that were going on, that was the angle that they were really excited about, was food enterprise and farming micro enterprise, and that in this economy and kind of this this landscape that we're in, that refugees and immigrants are taking such a strong role in being entrepreneurs at this market and succeeding. And then what we're also seeing is that now with this kind of growth in enterprise activities is the need for more programming and training support in that. So what we have here is the Farming Program Income Ladder, urban, I guess, UPIL for Ralph who likes that acronym. But it starts to kind of give a little bit more structure to now how to help clients evolve through the programming if they want to be more successful farmers down the road. And so we've got kind of a 4-tier ladder where with the community garden that we just kind of call that the subsistence growing level. And if you want to just grow food, that's perfectly fine. You don't have to sell. And there's tremendous assets with growing food, culture, and community there. But if you do want to make some extra money, now we're establishing it more clearly where, okay, we've got training through the farmers market booth, as well as the REAP program, and that's the one that's in Palma, about 45 miles away, where we've got about a 3-month structured training that we're going to be providing all the participants in their first series, and then more TA opportunities down the road. So this is going to help give folks access to more land, as well as the business planning and marketing skills to be their own independent vendors. The newest aqua farm you're going to see is now also reshaping from what was maybe an expanded community garden into something that's a lot more focused on helping those gardeners that want to be entrepreneurs. And so being there means that you're demonstrating more productive and innovative growing techniques. And our aquaponics system, which we'll see, has just recently seen its first fish sale 2 Fridays ago to a local sustainable seafood restaurant. So we're really excited to kind of keep understanding aquaponics. And so what we're seeing is after that, the first few $1,000s, there's a level that we're calling professional producer, where someone's really refined their production techniques. They know how to grow, and it's really then helping them access land. The REAP courses are going to help them with their business and marketing skills. So, with time that should be taken care of. And there's from levels 3 and 4, it really just comes down to the ability to acquire a lease or hopefully a deed to own your land, and the ability to make those sales and market products yourself. And that's very much the work that is ahead of us right now. And like Ellie said, all of this hinges on the next generation, which is the youth. And so our garden program and youth programs are very much part of that, as well as the fact that the youth, for a lot of our refugee clients, are interpreters, our cultural brokers, are the ones helping their families navigate through the American system. So there's also a huge asset that our refugee youth bring to the programs. And none of this can be done alone. And I love this slide because this was my second day at IRC when Ellie took me into one of the meeting rooms and said, okay, these are all our partners. So, and I said, okay, I need to take a photo for one, because there's no way I am digesting any of this. And 2 years later, it's this. This is the reality of it all. Is that it's we don't want to do it alone for so many reasons, right? Because it's unsustainable. We don't have the resources. When we do grants, we need to have partners. We need partners for the match. We need partners to show that we work in the community. It can be Machiavellian about it, and we can just be straight up practical. Why duplicate resources? And it's also just more fun. So, but again, none of this is just IRC. It is all with the community. And so I guess just to kind of close, all of this is that holistic approach, and I hope you've gotten a sense of why it's gotten all of these different bubbles in our programming, and that at the end of the day, what we're really striving towards now is this neighborhood food system, where you can see kind of the whole economy here. We've got producers. We're also working to kind of tinker with the consumer side, with education and advocacy, and what's amazing is that it's all at the neighborhood scale. It's literally in this neighborhood where you can walk to buy, walk to grow, and that then ultimately is then changing the whole landscape that we started out with, the City Heights context, it being so brutal, being so unhealthy, and that when we work at this scale, we're also transforming the built environment so that ultimately we're helping to resettle our clients into healthy places.